Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Allie Ryan joining us again, our parent coach, and excited to have her back here. Welcome to the show, CEO Allie Ryan Coaching. And by the way, that's how you find her, AllieRyanCoaching.com. How's everything going today?
That's great. How about you, Jill?
Oh, good. Well, thanks for being here. Pleasure to have you back. And for new time listeners, would you mind just telling us a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So, hi, my name is Allie Ryan, and I am CEO of Allie Ryan Coaching. I help busy parents learn how to let go of shame that is keeping them stuck, release the shackles of perfectionism, and feel calm amidst the chaos of parenting.
And today we're going to get into that, the burnout, the parenting,
Yep.
perfectionism, and all that, right? But before
Yep.
we
Yep.
continue, would you mind starting off by telling us a little bit more about the process to work with someone like yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, most people find me on podcasts actually, and can also find me on Instagram. But really, if you're feeling burned out, if you're feeling like you are just overwhelmed, you cannot get, feel like you can really get ahead, to me, there's a deeper problem there because that actually is not how it's supposed to be. We're not supposed to be overwhelmed. We're not supposed to be stuck in this perfectionism, feeling like we
Yep.
can't ever get ahead. That's actually a sign of something deeper. And our work together can really help you understand what's going on there, what's underneath all of that, and help you decide on purpose how you want to move forward. You don't have to stay in the autopilot, feeling behind all the time. That's actually not how life is supposed to be, especially with kids.
Oh, yeah, I know that for sure. Okay, let's talk today. I know you have specifics here in your notes, perfectionism, burnout. Where do we even start?
Yeah, well, I think it's really important to know, what are the causes of this perfectionism and burnout?
Mm-hmm.
I've identified three causes that I think would be helpful to start with today. The first one is unrealistic expectations. These, when we set really high expectations for ourselves, and for others that we can't actually meet, it's gonna lead to burnout at some point. We cannot, it just can be so stressful to try to, when we're always trying to reach up here and we can't actually get there, because it's not actually realistic, leads to burnout. Another one, fear of failure. So much, and so many of my clients, and even for myself, there was so much fear of failure of what if, what if I don't do a good enough job? What if I fail my kids? What if I am a failure as a parent, as a
Mm-hmm.
wife, as a child? These things start long before we are parents. But that fear, which actually, we can look at, really, it's just a fear of feeling bad, is more what that is. That really leads to burnout. And then overcommitment and overload. I don't know about you, but I know
Ooh.
for me, for a long time, I mean, I just would take on so much more that I could realistically do. And that always led to me feeling so bad and so overly stressed because I thought I had to do all these things. Turns out we actually don't.
Nope. Tell us, well, why do we overwhelm ourselves like this? Could you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that these,
Oh, camera
patterns
phone.
often start long before parenthood, right? These are patterns that start early in childhood or even adolescence. We, in our very formative years, we often internalize messages from society, from significant life events, or even from caregivers that reinforce this importance of achieving perfection or meeting high expectations. And so we sort of start to learn, or we start to see that the more that we do, or the better grades that we get positively validated for that. And actually, not that there's anything wrong with doing well
Yeah.
or even getting good grades, but it sort of can set up this pattern where the better I do, the more validation I get. And actually, that type of, I almost want to call it like a formula. It doesn't really work so well for parenthood because
Yeah.
the reality is we're not getting graded, first of
Mm-hmm.
all. We're
True.
not, this is not about getting into the honor society. This is real life. And there's going to be a lot of situations that are not in a grade-based situation, or even situations that are so much more than, black or white. Is this good or bad? There's so much that we have to kind of throw out in terms of parenthood and really life when we grow up. And we're still almost operating in this, like, if I do good, I get rewards. And that equation just doesn't really work for adulthood. These patterns
So
become really
true.
deeply ingrained, and they, kind of fuel that perfectionist tendency. and they persist into adulthood, and they influence our life. They influence our work habits, our including parenthood. And yeah, it just become really a miserable experience, to be honest. I've been
Wow.
there.
Well, let's talk about the three causes of burnout, would you say, related to parents or
Yeah, well, three
parenting, I
causes.
should say. Yes, that's what I meant.
Yeah. Well, sort of what I mentioned before, right? The three causes are usually unrealistic expectations, the fear of feeling bad, fear of failure, fear of not performing well enough, and then completely overloading our schedules, thinking that that is actually going to create a happy kid. Oftentimes we're doing these things hoping that our kids are happy with us. Well, I'm sorry to disappoint you. Our kids are oftentimes not going to be happy with us, and it has nothing to do with us. It has to do with them being a kid experiencing very normal emotions.
Yeah, it really is. Okay. And so talking about when these habits start and when and how can we fix them? Most importantly, I know it's easier said than done, Allie, but give us some advice.
Yeah, totally. Well, I think it could be helpful before we look at the fixing, looking at like how parenting actually exacerbates all these issues. Because I think
Hmm.
before we're parents and we're entering, the workforce, we honestly we experience a lot of things that can actually, like I said, almost positively influence us, but can turn into a really negative cycle once we become parents. And so time constraints is one of them that can really exacerbate this burnout that we experience in parenthood. Balancing work responsibilities with parenting duties is so much. I mean, I know you right now, right, as a parent and working, trying to balance those duties is really hard, especially as a single parent. I know both you and I can relate to that.
Hmm.
Also, if we're struggling with, high achievers wanting to do well, perfectionism, we feel compelled to meet these high standards at work while also striving to be a perfect parent. And this really leads to that feeling of inadequacy, as if we're falling short in both of our roles. Another something that can really exacerbate our stress in parenthood is again, unrealistic expectations, just creating these standards for ourselves that we can never maintain, mostly because juggling work and parenting can really reinforce the belief that perfection is attainable in all aspects of life. And so where a lot of my clients deal with is if they think, if I just do well enough in my parent, if I can just be the perfect parent, if I can just be the perfect, employee or the perfect manager, then I will feel good about myself. But the reality is, by setting that kind of unrealistic standard for yourself, you're actually falling short in both of those. Guilt and shame is also another thing that can really be really common with my clients. And even for me, where we often are feeling, if we're not meeting these high standards for ourselves, that we're falling short in our work and our responsibilities at home. And again, those perfectionistic tendencies really amplify these feelings of failure, because we honestly, we turn into really self-critical parts to ourselves to tell us we got to do better, and we become really deeply self-blaming, which is just not a very fun place to be, I gotta say. That guilt and shame is kind of a liar, honestly.
Ditto, it is.
It
Well,
really, really is. Yes.
working with parenting often makes issues worse sometimes, I guess you say, right? Could you share a little bit about these habits and how do they
Hmm.
start? How do we get rid of them?
Yeah, well, I think the biggest thing that I've noticed is really looking at how societal pressures put so much um like negative impact on us. And I guess to say that is, when we're looking and we're comparing to maybe our neighbors, we're comparing to what we see on social media, we can really be stuck in this compare and despair. And so the first thing that I like to help parents see is that we really need to look at our personal values. And we really need to see, what are we believing and what are we valuing that we might not even realize, right? If we're valuing, like, maybe that person has like a better car than us, it's so silly, but like these are the things that sometimes we can get stuck in, even in the pickup line, where it's like, oh, look, they look like they have it all together. We don't really know what they're going through. And so really looking at personal values that my clients have, and really having them take time to reflect and explore, what are their values and what are their beliefs about parenting, their parenting, the way that they were parented, and really have them, the work that we do is considering where these beliefs originated from, and also whether they align to who they want to be or not. oftentimes we're just in this autopilot. We don't even realize that we can step back and decide to do something different. We're just going, right? Day to day to day to day. Wake up, get ready, pack lunches, get the kids out the door, go to work, autopilot with what's on our schedule, and on and on and on throughout the day without actually even stepping back and asking ourselves, like, what is even happening in my day, or how do I even want to feel about my day? So I know I took us on a little tangent there, but really the biggest thing there is reflecting on our personal values to even see, like, are we showing up the way that we want, or are we just being influenced by our family of origin and by our societal expectations? First one.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, the second one is, looking at your media consumption. Again, this sort of
Uh,
plays off of personal values, but a lot of times we are not even aware of the media that we're consuming and the impact that it has. And so, I think looking at who you're following on Instagram, look at how much time we're spending on Facebook just scrolling because whether we're bored or we're just feeling uncomfortable in our life. Again, it's that autopilot where we grab the phone and we're being influenced by the news, by the people we're following, by the things that we're looking at, and really kind of asking folks to step back and ask themselves, like, is this supporting them in the type of person and parent that they want to be? Or do they actually need to have a little bit of a mix up? Do we need to, get rid of, I totally encourage people to kind of purge what's no longer working for them, or the media that might not be helpful for them, and to really limit the exposure to this, because it can really help reduce feelings of inadequacy and comparison. If we're constantly looking at things that we're not measuring up to, we're going to kind of feel bad about ourselves. And so taking a pause from that is huge. And the third thing that really can help is seeking community support, connecting with other parents who feel the same, joining parent groups, having a coach like me, really getting some outside perspective, because I don't know about you, but it can be so easy to get stuck into our cute little comfort zone, where it's cozy. It's almost like our little cave, where we have the same friends. We might complain about the same things all the time. I know that I can, really got stuck in this before I realized, like, oh, the people that I'm with might be kind of influencing me in a way that I don't like. And so finding community that you feel like you align with, that really might have the similar perspectives as you or have similar hobbies as you, can really help you see that, the way that we're thinking is sort of in this echo chamber that might not be helpful. We sometimes need to shake it up and get out of our head in the way that we've been, doing life, I guess I'll say.
Doing life is what it is. Oh, all
Mhm.
right. Got to change it sometimes, though. We got to change it up for the better.
We really do. Again, it's the autopilot, and I think we can all get really stuck in this. And it's common. Our brains want to be on an autopilot. That's part of how we get. It's part of like how it makes the brain easier, right? It's part of the motivational triad of just, if we seek pleasure, if we avoid pain, and we don't have to work hard, that's what the brain wants, then we don't have to think about it. And so change can seem really scary because only because our brains don't want to work hard. Right. It's almost like it's saving all of its energy for the lion attack. But the reality is we don't have a lion that we have to face. We don't have to worry about that kind of thing. Really, what we're facing is our own discomfort that we don't want to face. And so that is the biggest thing that is, working with a coach, is on purpose deciding that we want to change. And I think that period between deciding that we're really tired of the way that we're behaving and tired of the way things are going to actually wanting change, it can be kind of this painful process. But once people embrace it and sort of move towards, like, wow, like things are feeling better, like I can shift my mindset. Wow, I don't feel like I hate my life as much. I don't feel like I'm so annoyed and mad at my kids all the time. People really start to embrace, like, well, what else can change? And that's really the coolest thing about looking at some of this stuff that's not working for us, is like things can be changed for the better. Things don't change for the worse often. Usually things change for the better when we allow change to happen.
But we have to let it in. And that's always
Mhm.
a hard and scary thing. But that's why you're working with so many people. And I just need to remind everyone how we can contact you, Allie.
Yeah, easiest way to contact me is on through my website, www.allieryancoaching.com, ALIRYAN coaching.com.
Perfect. Thanks so much. And again, for today, we are learning, hopefully, listen up here to Allie. She's our expert and she's teaching us ways to handle this burnout and the stress that we call it, which comes along with parenthood. Is anyone immune from this or is it all parents? I haven't found any of the friends that say they don't have difficulties. There's no perfect child or perfect family, right?
No, no, that doesn't exist. No, it's easy to think that we do have the worst family or we do have the worst life. That's honestly what shame tells us is that it must be the worst for us. And it can be really isolating when we believe that. And so that's a lot of the work that I actually first start doing with my clients is starting to help them understand how much shame is actually behind most of the actions that they take or don't take
Yeah.
because the isolation, the not wanting to talk about it. Again, we all have these issues. We all feel the effects of the stress of working,
Yep.
the stress of our families, whether the people have kids or not. We're all
Yes.
dealing with this. We're just really not talking about it very much. So you're very spot on. For me, the work that I do mostly aligns with parenting just because that's my niche. But I work with a lot of people that are not parents, or not even, wanting to necessarily work on parenting things, but just tired of feeling angry and frustrated and overwhelmed in their
Yep.
life. Because again, the perfectionism really kind of tricks us into thinking that if we just stay perfect, then no one will actually find out that we are not the best employee that they thought, or, we think that we're kind of tricking people. But the reality is we all feel doubt and insecurity. We all have those human emotions. It's not really widely talked about or accepted that we can talk about these things. So I really provide a safe space for people where we can just really release all of those societal expectations that really come with, especially what it's be like to be raised as a woman, where, we don't really talk about that it's okay to feel a lot of these insecure things. And the reality is it's totally normal. It's part of being a human. And whether it's a parent, whether you're a daughter, whether you're a mom, these things are just very, very common to experience, and also completely optional. We don't have to believe the guilt or the shame. That's the piece here that we get to work
Hmm.
through.
Oh my goodness, that's the hard part, but we can get through it.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
any other, advice, steps that you want to share about, helping us overcome this to be more aware?
Yeah, absolutely. I think just looking at when do we really feel that most stress? When do we start to really talk, nasty to ourselves? That's, I think, sometimes can be a really great starting point of just when is my brain just ready to like jump on me and attack me for just doing the best that I can? I really want people to understand that we often are doing the very best we can with the tools and resources that we have. There was a lot of pain. This is a little side note, but there's a lot of pain that I had around my parents and the way that I was raised, which is partly why I do this work. Is because like I was repeating patterns that I didn't like. I was repeating patterns that my parents did, and I was like, wait, these things actively caused me pain. These things were not helpful, and that's how I am parenting. And so, really helping parents realize like that they get to learn these communication skills. They get to learn their emotional landscape so that they can teach their kids. And so, really, I just want people to know they're not alone in any of this. This is stuff that we all struggle with, and they don't have to parent the way that they were parented. They get to decide on their own. They get to create boundaries. They get to decide to do things differently. And the biggest thing is we don't have to quit our jobs. We don't have to get rid of our kids. We don't have to run away. We don't. What I teach people is like, we're not changing anything except for our mindset. And before we even change our mindset, we're just going to get curious and get aware of actually what's working and what's not. Because there's some things that might be working just fine. There's some things that are not working that we have to make some changes. And so really just, I really love for people to know that like they are not alone in this journey. It feels so alone, but that's not real. Like we are not alone. There's so much resources, so much support that's out there for all of us. If we just open ourselves up to it just a little bit, just a little bit.
Thank you for your advice on how to do this. That some people it's hard to get started, but it's okay to know that you're not alone. And Allie, you're an expert in this. Just a little bit about your background and your experience working with people.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's funny. I've worked around people my whole life. I started off as a elder care and hospice nurse. and spent 14 to 15 years doing that, really working with families, mostly in crisis mode, who didn't know what to do next, didn't understand, how to move forward from this loss. And those were some of the most learning experiences and most, some of the most honoring experience I had was helping folks move through this next period of life or end of life with support and knowing that like this is really hard, but you've got this. Helping people
Yeah.
learn how to talk to their parent that maybe is in the active dying process. And so going through that and working with families in crisis sort of led to me realizing that I'm already doing a lot of coaching and teaching anyway, which led to me during the pandemic opening my business and moving more into the coaching realm, especially because I saw so many families that really need this kind of support outside of the environment that I was working in before. Also having 3 kids and being married and divorced twice, I think is I got my PhD, I think, in life through my own experiences of what it's like to be a single parent, what it's like to be a professional trying to balance work and the stresses of being in leadership as well as raising kids. These experiences and learning that, man, it is so stressful and so many of us are struggling out there and we don't have to do this alone really, pushed me into getting out there
Yep.
and building my business.
Oh, well, thank you. It's a pleasure always having you here. We still have 4 minutes left in the show. And when
Yeah.
we talk to Allie Ryan, obviously she has an expertise in this parent and child relationship. And just as you as a parent,
Mhm.
I mean, you're not immune to this. You've walked down the path with your own
Oh,
kids too, right?
yeah,
And it just
absolutely.
to show we're not alone. Even the best of the best, the professionals experience it. Don't
I
think
still
you are
struggle.
alone.
Yeah. I still struggle. I think that's the thing that's really important is like, I am not immune. I have been, I have taken an interest in coaching and an interest in helping folks move through the feeling of being helpless, but I think it's so important to share my own honesty, especially, right now with having 2 teenagers. I have a 17, a 15, and a 10-year-old. I am, constantly on a daily basis,
Yep.
wondering what is the best way to parent these teens and what is the best way to be there for them and going through my own challenges. And so, yes,
Okay.
there is no immunity here. Really, parenthood is a journey and the journey is a marathon. There is not one size fits all. There is not one way to be a good parent. It's really about what do our kids need and how can we, shift maybe what we know or what we believe to sort of be there for them because that's really important. But at the same time, as we're being that supportive parent, we need to make sure we're taking care of ourselves.
Yep.
And so it's this constant balance that I think all of us are trying to achieve, especially working, where, the second that we think we've got it with this one age range, the next thing happens. And so I think parenting is definitely the thing that has kept me on my toes more than anything else in my life.
It's so true, right? Oh my
Yes.
goodness. All right.
But
Well,
coaching has really helped me. I think that's the other thing. Is like I'm not sitting here, flailing, wondering what to do. I know that like because of the work that I've done, like that I can get myself back to a grounded space that I can set really good boundaries with them and show them what needs to happen, especially because I have, everything that I do, it's because of the own tools that I walk my own talk. And that's something that's really important to me is I don't just tell people what to do. It's all because of stuff that I've done, I've experienced. I want to save people years of this heartbreak that I've experienced or years of feeling helpless and not knowing what to do. Um, Schedule a connection call with me, learn what might not be working and how
yeah.
we can work together.
Oh, well, thank you again for being here. If we're interested, you offer an initial discovery call. Is that how I call it?
Absolutely. Yep. I call a discovery or connection call. I just love to hear what's going on with people. Let's have a chat. Let's figure out what's going on. I'll teach you, a little. I like to always leave people with a little tidbit, a little bit of coaching on that call, let them know exactly how they can work with me, exactly what we can move forward in, help them achieve those goals so that they can feel a little bit happier and more in control of their life because we all deserve that because we are
Perfect.
in control. We're so much more powerful and strong than we realize.
Oh, thank you so much. Pleasure having you here and looking forward to the next time we connect again. Thanks again, Allie Ryan Coaching. And are we up again next week?
Yeah.
Too early to tease what's happening next week?
I've been thinking about how great it would be to talk more about relationships, mostly like romantic or friendship relationships where we, for especially us post-divorce parents, we still deserve to date and have lives of our own. And so I've been thinking maybe that will be the topic for next week.
Perfect. Thank you. Sounds good. Have a great day. And to all of
Thanks,
our
Jill.
listeners
You
and
too.
viewers, thank you. Stay
Bye.
tuned. More of the show is coming right up.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.